Hello everyone, welcome to Lyles Movie Files. I'm Jeffrey Lyles. Joining me today is my good friend Melvin Morin. Melvin, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, really excited.
Awesome. Yesterday was my birthday and today is something even more amazing because I'm kicking off Lyles Movie Files. Lyles Movie Files is the same website that I've been running for 4 years now, since 2012. I started after my gig as a newspaper movie critic was ended thanks to that dear lovely thing known as a recession. It killed off a little bit of everything, and the first thing on the chopping block was my movie critic gig. So I decided I'd start off and do my own movie review site where I would talk about everything that I saw in the course of a week. I started off doing just movie reviews, but then it expanded to include action figure reviews, TV reviews, comic book reviews, and video games, and everything in between. And that's what this show is going to be, a little bit of everything in between, from movies to comic books, video games, and TV. If you're looking for more celebrity gossip, you're probably going to still need to stick to TMZ. So for now, we're going to kick this thing off, and we're going to start off with movie reviews, since that's where the show's bread and butter at least starts off with. So Melvin, we're going to start off with Ben Affleck's The Accountant. And this is one that continues the year of Ben Affleck. He's had an awesome 2016. He led off with one of my favorite films of the year, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. Take a deep breath after you finish saying the full title. And while not a lot of people like the first theatrical version, the home video release with the extra 30 minutes is awesome and one of my favorite movies of the year. So he's done that. He's also made a nice little cameo in Suicide Squad, and now he's back outside of the bat suit in The Accountant. In this film, he stars as the accountant. He's a fixer of books for international people, some terrorists, some crooks, and he's garnered the attention of J.K. Simmons, who plays a Department of Treasury agent. He's trying to track him down, and because he's got this high profile, the accountant decides to lay low for a bit and take some not so serious assignments. That brings him to John Lithgow's character, who runs his corporation, and one of his financial agents, played by Anna Kendricks, discovered some discrepancies. Say that 8 times fast. And so with her finding that, they call in Ben Affleck's character, and he finds out, there are some major problems. But once he tracks that down, someone starts to kill them. Only bad thing is, this guy is like the first action hero who also happens to be autistic. And it's kind of cool the way the film plays that out because it's not making a joke out of it. He's just like this bad, super efficient action hero. So it's kind of like A Beautiful Mind meets Jason Bourne. Okay. And we got that, and it's cool. The action shot very well. Affleck again delivers one of these performances that makes you think, okay, maybe Jilly was just a farce, just a blip, and now we can continue on to him being a real action or just legitimate movie superstar. John Bernthal, who dazzled us earlier this year as the Punisher in the Daredevil Netflix series, also has this really cool cameo that I will not spoil for you.
Okay, excellent.
But it all comes together really nice. It's one of those movies where you think it's going one way, then it slips over to another direction, and it's like, oh wow, this is a really good movie. And it's got a little Usual Suspects elements to it where everything's unfolding, then it all comes together, and it's like, that's good. I like the way that came together. What are you thinking about Ben Affleck's year so far?
Ben Affleck has been amazing this year. Just even that small cameo in Suicide Squad at the end there was perfect. Just the perfect setting up for the next couple of movies, setting up the rivalry with
Superman.
No,
Deadshot.
No. Waller, Amanda Waller.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm always a fan of that rivalry because they're both very keen chess playing people working on the same side but different sides at the same time. So I'm always a fan of the Bruce Wayne, Amanda Waller thing. So they set that up perfectly. And then, Dawn of Justice, he stole the show. He stole the show. I caught the theatrical. I have the one with the extra clips, extended edition, but I have not watched it because I really want to just sit down and analyze the differences.
Bad Melvin. It's
very bad.
The home version is way superior.
It's sitting on my shelf.
Yes.
I just need to pull it off and
open it up, release it, put it into the Blu-ray case, and watch it. It'll be well worth your time. Next up, we got Dessert Show, and that is a movie that is appropriately timed for this political season. It's the kind of movie that Donald Trump, after he finishes fluffing his hair, will sit down, grab some popcorn, and have a nice time watching until the not-so-happy ending for him. Basically, the movie's about this nut job with a rifle that's played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who we'll be talking about soon enough. he's playing a crazy role, which is a switch from his normal stuff. And he's got this crazy German Shepherd that he calls Tracker. And they are out for a hunting spree, and they're grabbing up some rabbits, and then they stumble onto this group of immigrants looking to cross over to the Mexico border and hop over to the U.S. And being the good patriot that he is, he decides that he is going to stop them with his rifle and his trusty dog. And what we get is this crazy thriller, which is made even more horrific by the fact that, hey, some crazy dude could actually take his rifle and just go along the border and start shooting immigrants trying to cross over. This is directed by Jonas Cuarón, and he's the son of the Gravity director, and he also co-wrote Gravity. So this is gonna, so it's like this well thought out, well put together film. There's not just this simple kind of thriller thing where it's like, oh, okay. It's like well put together. There's not a ton of character development, but what we do get is just enough that it's like, these guys just want to cross over. They want to make their lives better. And this guy with a gun is trying to stop it. And it's this thriller. It's kind of got this horror element because I'm like screaming to the screen, no, moron, stop, don't do that, get out, dog. So it's like, do this instead. It's cool. I really liked it. It's definitely something I know you haven't seen yet, but you got to put on your to-see list as, the year goes through. So make sure you catch that one.
Got it.
Next up is this movie that I know you're very excited to talk about and very excited, and you want to get all into it. That's Nate Parker's The Birth of a Nation.
Yes, Birth of a Nation. Oh, Nate Parker. He seemed to have shot himself in the foot with his tour of, I don't give a crap about the allegations, pay attention to the message of the movie. I don't mind him saying that, but he said it in the most arrogant way possible, which turned off a few people. Me, I was still going to see it because I'm a mild historian in my right, I guess. And the fact that I've learned that it was historically inaccurate, along with the allegations, meaning that what started a rebellion was a rape, therefore he's got this thing about rape and his allegations, and that made the black feminists just kind of blow up and say, no, we're not watching this. And the nail in the coffin was when he refused to go on Oprah, who was trying to give him an olive branch and say, hey, come on the show, come on my channel, let's talk this out, let's figure it out so we can save your movie. And he refused. And will that stop me from seeing the movie? No, but I am seeing that most of the reason why a lot of people didn't see that movie was because of the hoopla behind the scenes, and not the movie itself, which got rave reviews before all the allegations. So I'm still interested in seeing the movie, but I know a lot of people aren't, and I understand why they're not.
All right, so you talked about the controversy behind the film.
Correct.
I'm just going to talk about the movie. Because I feel like so many people are just kind of like, let's talk about the controversy and ignore the movie. The movie is one of those movies that it's one where Parker, this is his first time doing a film, and this is his big directorial debut, and it's one of the better debuts for a director I've seen in a really long time. He really understands concepts of framing and kind of establishing the characters. There's not a whole ton of character development for the female characters or anybody outside of Nate Turner. And this movie, The Birth of a Nation, which I have not mentioned, is about the slave revolt of Nat Turner. And this film kind of plays out, and a lot of it spent building up to this big revolt. So it's got tons of like the atrocities of slavery. So we see some, it's crazy how we've seen so many movies about slavery, and yet there's still new developments that we see. And it's like, oh gosh, you don't want to watch it, but you need to really fully take it all in. So one of the more hard to watch segments is where a slave owner chips out the tooth of a slave to make them eat. And that's one of those like, wow. You don't want to see this movie with a bunch of concessions. You don't want to sit, there's not a movie you're going to be munching on your popcorn watching because it's going to be tough to watch. While I was at the theater, there was one person that was like, I can't see much more of this. I can't take much more of this. Another woman was squirming in her seat. And so overall, it was just this really tough viewing experience. But it's one of those movies that it takes you on this long journey and it pays off from a certain perspective, because once that revolt happens, it is big and it's major and it's like, whoa, okay, wow. So it's kind of like you feel where Nat Turner's coming from, you feel all that hate and that frustration with the system, and he's deeply religious, so he's like, how are these slave owners trying to use the Bible to say you're supposed to be a slave and I'm supposed to be the master? But then the next verse says, hey, no, you're not supposed to be a slave to anybody. You're supposed to, treat each other with love. And it's like, well, that's not what this is saying. And that's not what y'all are doing. So it's this interesting paradox and kind of questioning the religious system and how it can say two different things and how you relate to it and how people relate to each other. The actual slave revolt, where probably some people wanted to come watch the movie just for that, it's really well staged, it's shot well, and it really has that sense of like, oh yeah, they've got this coming. And it's one where it's going to be probably not as divisive because the slave owners are really portrayed in the film like terrible, horrible, barely human beings, so they really have access to the head coming to them. So it's not a horror movie, but it definitely plays out one for the slaves who have to deal with all this craziness, and then for the slave owners that get knives and all kinds of stuff, shanks and all this, and it's like, wow, this is a crazy experience. It's not a perfect movie. They need to, Parker really need to focus more on some character development, but he has the basics together. And I hope this film's box office success doesn't stop him from getting other chances to be behind the camera and as well as being in front of it. Because I think with some more honing and more work on that front, he's going to start cranking out some movies that are really going to be worth seeing. This one just for the educational aspect and just another view of slaves where it's not just the slaves being victims, but actually stand up and doing something.
And that was exactly why I wanted to watch the movie over a Matthew McConaughey,
Free State of Jones,
Free State of Jones, white savior, because I'm in love with the black woman situation.
Yeah.
I was very like, okay, no, I'm just gonna wait for the Nat Turner film. Controversy came out. Okay, I'll watch it. I'll watch it with my wife. We've been delayed in watching that because probably of the controversy, honestly. But I can't wait to see, like you just said, the revolt scene. Going to the new museum, the new Smithsonian Museum but for Black History, you see the actual Bible on display, and I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to see that movie because I want to see the actual revolt. It just reminded me of why I actually wanted to see that movie.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those different kind of slave movies just because of that. It's like, oh wow, you mean there's actually some people who go, I'm not taking this anymore. I'm not just going to run away. I'm going to do something about it.
But on our own versus 12 Years a Slave, where he had to write or have, he wrote this thing years ago, which is still accurate to Solomon Northrop's actual story. He had to have the Ben Affleck character send this letter and do all that and just wait and pray.
Right.
And
you keep waiting. You keep waiting.
Yeah. Here, everybody took their matters in their own hands and said, this is what's happening. So
it doesn't have a happy ending because,
of course.
It's a slave
of course.
And slave revolts don't end well.
Correct.
So, but this is one of those situations where an injustice kind of gets met. There's some addressing of it and people are like, nope, we're not dealing with this anymore. And it's kind of one of those, like if you have this big collection of films with slave time and just like the struggle of civil rights, you've got your 12 Years a Slave, you've got your The Birth of a Nation, you've got your Selma, and different films of that nature. You can kind of see like the changing dynamic of how like, oh, okay, first it's more of a docile kind of thing, then it's a more aggressive approach like this, and then you get the civil rights movement with Selma, and it's just like this interesting story of the Black experience in America that's getting played out in films. Hopefully now we move past the slave era and we can start moving to the next step, the
bulletproof superheroes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so we've got all that kind of stuff, and I think this is a movie that's definitely worth seeing. It's one that that little teen who thinks they know everything in the household needs to see, because it wasn't always a thing about like, hey, this life is awesome and great. It's like, no, people really suffered, and people use this word not to be like, hey buddy, but like, hey, you piece of trash. So I definitely suggest seeing it. It's probably not going to get a lot of Oscar attention because of the controversy, and because let's just face it, a lot of Oscar voters aren't going to want to watch a movie where a bunch of white people are getting killed off. So
that's true.
Yeah, there you go. And this controversy just happened to be like, perfect, we got this. Now we can move on and do something else with it. So yeah, but there's some other movies coming out, including Denzel Washington's Fences, which I'm very excited about.
I'm very excited about that.
We'll talk about that one soon. All right, so next up, we've covered our movie reviews. Yeah, I gave you a homework assignment. We talked about this. Halloween is fast approaching. You were supposed to pick your recommendation for the viewing audience about the movie they should see when they want to kick off their big Halloween movie marathon.
Now,
and What did you decide on?
I decided to do something completely opposite because I'm Melvin, and I decided to pick from the wealth of horrible horror movies out there and picked Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. It is the only, and it was written by John Carpenter as well, but it was the only movie that didn't feature Jamie Lee Curtis or any Mike Myers, none of that. It was pretty terrible, but it did have some social commentary. Critics back then were not down with it, but now it's kind of got this cult following. Yeah, it's still here. You can still find it on VHS. No, you can still find it, and they still air it on regular TV sometimes. And it's got this cult following because it's just so different. It's a very 80s feel. It's made in 1982, and it has this social commentary on consumerism and capitalism. So, a lot of hipsters are definitely into it. I'm kind of a half a hipster, so I guess I can say that's probably one of the reasons why I like it.
So you're half hip.
I'm half hip.
Okay.
Exactly. But it was the worst grossing movie of the Halloween series. And, they never went away from Mike Myers. I wonder why, after this situation. But it did gross, or it took $2 million to make, but it did gross $14 million. So it wasn't a loss. It was just the worst one out of the entire series. So basically, I recommend watching it if you want to watch a bad movie for your bad movie night. It was just the reason why I picked it, because again, bad movie night, you can go through any horror movie, but for Halloween, I pick Halloween 3.
Terrible. That's an absolutely terrible choice. All right, so I'm going to give you a good movie choice. So mine is, we know how Hollywood loves to do remakes of everything. And it kind of gets to the point of, oh, what hasn't been done? Oh, let's make a live action Lion King movie. Great, that'll work. This time, Hollywood actually got it right. They decided to remake Friday the 13th. This is a film that came out in 2009, and it was everything that made the series great. So basically, it's Jason with his hockey mask running around with a machete, killing people, and all kinds of campers at Camp Crystal Lake. He's going after the couple that's busy having sex. He's going after the quirky nerd, and he's going after the hot girl with the too tight sweater. So he's going after everybody, but it's filmed with more of a modern sensibility, and they've got a little bit more money to put into it, so the death scenes are gruesome. They don't look like, oh, that's just candy and red soap or corn syrup. It's like, oh man, that looks like blood, and Jason's crazy. It's a really well done horror movie. It's one where it's like, wow, okay. So they can actually make horror movies that aren't stupid. They're not like the 80s insulting ones where it's like, oh, don't trip over, oh, he tripped over something. The kind of movies they made fun of and Scream. This is one where it's like, oh, okay. They actually thought this through. They fixed all the problems with the series, and it's just like a good way for them to do it. And so then we had that, and then, you mentioned Halloween, but they actually have a pretty decent Halloween remake as well.
Yes.
But, since that wasn't what I told you to do and you decided to go rogue, I won't talk about that. But yeah, so definitely my choice for best Halloween movie to check out is the Friday the 13th, the remake version. Now we're switching gears again, and now we're talking about upcoming movies. And the one that I have circled in big red ink on my calendar that's coming up next week is Doctor Strange. What do you think about Doctor Strange before I get into it?
Oh, I'm really excited. I'm all about the mystic arts. I'm all about our master sorcerer. I'm all about the alchemy symbols that are about to be involved. But I'm also a good fan of how Marvel, the universe right now, has been putting these characters together that you would think there's no way a talking raccoon can fit in this universe that they have, and suddenly here we are with everybody fitting together because of the Infinity Stones and whatnot. So I'm curious to see how well, I'm just very confident how well they fit Doctor Strange into this. I mean, I'm just from the casting through just the previews and their marketing cycle, it's just exhilarating. So I'm excited about this movie.
All right, so Doctor Strange stars Benedict Cumberbatch, and he is the star of Sherlock, and people are already saying they hope that Robert Downey Jr. shows up and they can somehow manage to work in a Sherlock Holmes joke. So Cumberbatch plays Stephen Strange, who's a brilliant surgeon whose hands get damaged, and he's desperate for any kind of means to restore them. And so he seeks out this monk, the ancient one, in hopes of restoring his hands, but instead he learns of a whole new world that he was completely unaware of. And that takes him on this magical, mystical journey where he becomes Marvel's Sorcerer Supreme. And this movie's stacked. It's got a big cast. It's got Tilda Swinton. It's got Chiwetel Ejiofor. Got his name right. Check. And so it's going to be good. And it's one that, Marvel has this great track record because they can take anything from Ant-Man to Guardians of the Galaxy, make them household names, and make everyone care about these characters, probably in a way that DC is still trying to learn how to do with just Superman and Batman. So Stephen Strange and Doctor Strange is going to be the next big Marvel superstar. So next Halloween, we'll see a bunch of kids in red capes running around, going like this and not doing Spider-Man. So it'll be interesting to see how this comes out. And as always, I'm very curious to see what the Marvel connection with this is, because it's like the big thing with every Marvel movie is like, okay, cool, we got the movie. All right, now what's going to happen in the post-credit? Right. What Avengers is going to show up? And so, I'm already looking for that. I'm trying to avoid every spoiler possible because I want to just go in cold and be surprised. Cumberbatch himself has already said that Doctor Strange will be showing up in Avengers Infinity War along with everyone, including probably Aunt May. Mm-hmm. But I'm not bad. I'm not upset about Marissa Tomei getting work. So looking forward to this. It comes out November 4th, so make sure you circle that on the calendar. And that's the big one that I've got kind of circled, and I'm looking forward to seeing for next month.
Same here. All right.
Good deal. Now we are talking about the smaller screen. We've talked about the big screen stuff. Now we're going to go home to TV and maybe on your phone app at home. So I watch a ton of TV shows. There's a bunch on my docket. Like every week, I do about 7 reviews on 7 TV shows. And of course, that makes a lot of juggling in terms of catching everything. But I stayed up super late because I was out Sunday and I had to make sure that I stayed home and was able to fast forward through all the commercials so I could enjoy the full experience of the season premiere of this year's season 7 Walking Dead. And it was a doozy. There were a lot of people who were not happy with season 6's cliffhanger because they didn't tell us who Negan killed. But back in the day, that's how every season finale was. There was a cliffhanger. You needed to tune back in to see what happened. People gotten so used to, okay, tell me everything. And, kind of lost all that suspense, that edge of your seat. I can't wait till the fall till this show comes back. And Walking Dead went back. They did a throwback and people hated it. And I loved it because I was like, great, I'm actually looking forward to this season and I want to see what happens. So it didn't disappoint. Negan swung his bat, and it took a little while to get there. I had to fast forward through approximately 62 commercials in the first 20 minutes, but it paid off. It was like, wow, okay. Abraham got killed first, and then Daryl, being Daryl, just went off and said, I can't have any more of this. I'm taking you down, and Daryl didn't get killed because the show wants to stay on the air and not have all these female fans revolt, and our boy Glenn finally met his end. Now this was kind of cool because they teased Glenn being killed in season 6. And then when he miraculously survived, when I had my poll and my betting pool of who's going to get killed by Negan, Glenn was way down because it's like, we already lost Glenn last season. We've dealt with the emotional turmoil of losing him. And it was like, gotcha. Yep. And it was like, wow, that was good. I really liked how they played out. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is like perfect as Negan. He's got that bat, he's got that cool leather jacket, and he's doing his thing. I'm really excited about seeing how this plays out over the course of this season because it's not going to be the traditional season where Rick is like, hey, we can take care of this situation. We just got to get together. And he's not forgetting to shave and everything. This season's going to be a broken Rick who's like, I don't want to mess with this dude. He's not the governor. He's not those crazy flesh-eating dudes at Terminus. He's a dude. He's going to take his baseball bat and literally bash our brains in. And I don't want to have to cut my son's arm off. So we're going to lay low this season. And I think the cool thing about season 7 is going to be this real journey on the former Alexandria crew learning to man up once again and get their mojo back and get their aim back on so they can go after Negan and take out the saviors. Melvin, what you think?
I thought it was great. It was almost the Glenn bat eye poking out everything, super
That's
gory.
All you needed, huh?
That's all I needed because I started reading the comics around this point of the series, and so when I saw that it was frame by frame from really some of the, you know, from that point, and then at the end as well, it was almost frame by frame from the black and white comic that I started reading at this point. So and then Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I mean, there couldn't have been a better casting. Comedian, I mean, come on, a comedian from Watchmen. I mean, perfect. He's played this role only less wicked. So now he can go full wicked, and I mean, he's killing it so far, literally. And so I'm just looking forward to seeing how everything is portrayed. If it's going to be like the comic, if it's not, I'm still going to watch because the acting is brilliant. The acting was just brilliant. This is a perfect series premiere.
Yeah.
Or season premiere.
This season's gonna be like, wow, let's get this thing going. And one thing about the comic versus the show, it's so much different reading the comic book without seeing the blood in red, in black, in dark red. And it's like, wow, this looks a lot worse in real life than the comic. The comic's like, okay, I can turn the page, but man, watching that thing on screen is like, yeesh. Yeah, that's what it looks like when somebody takes a barbed wire baseball bat to someone's head repeatedly. Wow, okay. Moving on to slightly more pleasant matters. Netflix premiered their latest Marvel collaboration, Luke Cage, and it was probably one of my favorites of the 4 Netflix seasons we've seen so far. Mike Coulter resumed his role of Luke Cage, the superhero who's not a superhero, but is just a regular guy who, through an experiment, now has bulletproof skin and enhanced strength. So this was like, I read a headline that said this was the blackest thing that Marvel's ever done. And clearly that's going to be the case because you can't have a lot of hip hop and Blade, and we've yet to get a Falcon or a War Machine TV series or movie. So, clearly by default, it was going to have to be. But man, this thing was killing it. It had like this awesome soundtrack. All the performances were great. My favorites were Cottonmouth, of course, because he was just amazing. Alfred Woodard killed every scene, and Simone Missick was like this revelation is Misty Knight. What's your take on our?
I mean, like the headline said, it was the blackest thing that was ever made. I mean, you're listening to the soundtrack. You got Raphael Sadiq to Method Man to, I mean, just the Delphonics were on here musically, right? Every episode was named after a Gang Starr song. You can't get much more hip hop than that. Then you got Harlem. I mean, it's just Harlem, and some of the shots were very like Shaft, like very much like Gordon Parks. I can just see, him walking around in a suit, beating up people in a Dapper Dan suit. I mean, again, I just said 80 black things right there. Like, I mean, come on, like right there, that's perfect. Then you had 2 Howard alums in the movie, girl that played Candace and Misty Knight, and I mean, it was just perfect. I mean, it was one of the most perfect things I've seen Marvel do on screen, on TV. And I mean, I love Daredevil season 2 was like up there. So here's this. I'm like, well, how are you gonna beat that? Oh yeah, Iron Fist comes out. Yeah. I'm just excited about the Netflix universe, which is still tied into the big universe. Again, something that I would love DC to do with their TV series, but
That's Earth CW. Which I'll get to in a second. But the only real complaint I have about these Netflix shows at this point is that Netflix keeps cranking out these great TV series, and the movies act like what happens when it doesn't happen. So we hear all these references to Thor, Hulk, Captain America, but we don't see a little bit of that love thrown the other way. Like, it'd have been awesome in Civil War just to have some sort of reference about that crazy dude running around in Hell's Kitchen, or that girl with the super strength. That'd have been a nice little kind of tip of the hat, or just even some passing reference to the Inhumans, because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been, they're always kind of bending over to do something for the movie universe, but it needs to be on it both ways, and I'd love to see that happen going forward. I mean, or even just like a random cameo from these Netflix guys in Avengers Infinity War. That would make my experience with that
I agree.
even more so. We mentioned Earth CW, so let's start shifting gears to the CW universe.
Oh yeah.
Which is pretty much every DC thing except for Fox's Gotham. So we've got Supergirl, we've got Flash, we've got Arrow, we've got DC's Legends of Tomorrow. I'll let you go first. Which one do you want to tackle first?
Man, let's go with, you know what? Let's go with Supergirl.
All right. up, and away.
I'm noticing a few differences from when they moved to moved from CBS to CW, as terms of shifting budget gear. Last episode, we're seeing that McGann is now discovered as being another Martian on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, awesome. You got Superman coming through, but now he's about to fly away back to Metropolis. Budget, I think. You got Callista Flockhart leaving, to some people's, joy. Callista Flockhart's leaving. I'm imagining that she is an expensive actress because she actually owned a whole series basically before. So I'm hoping they divert that to special effects so we can see more Martians. Because as they switch back and forth, they keep seeing scenes in their form. And I'm like, is that a budget thing, or they just don't want to hide their faces? I don't know. But as far as the series is going, I'm thinking they're going on a faster pace than last season. It's perfectly kind of aligned. You got the Superman coming in and introducing Marnell. Hopefully they'll figure out that whole plot line there. I don't know if they're trying to make a new love interest there or it's whatever.
I've liked what they've done so far with Supergirl. I was not a big fan of the Superman outfit, but Tyler Hoechlin was awesome as Superman. He was cheery, funny, and that big blue Boy Scout that, Superman embodies. And I think they played that off really well without him totally upstaging Supergirl. And, they've got this connected universe going now. We've got Martian Manhunter, and I was a little upset we didn't see more Martian Manhunter actually flying with Superman. I think it's kind of dumb that he's flying around like this black dude. But anyway, outside of that, and I, as you mentioned, I was not a huge fan of Callista Flockhart doing her Devil Wears Prada impersonation. So I really like the fact that she's away from the show. We kind of focus more on Supergirl, not the going-ons at Catco. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the season goes or progresses and what new villains and what new storylines they're going to go on. I mentioned this to you earlier that I think with Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, DC has this really unique opportunity to do something that they couldn't necessarily do with their movie universe and do an adaptation of one of their more famous storylines, Crisis on Infinite Earths. That's something they can play off and pull all those supporting characters that they've constantly introduced in these 4 series and bring them all together for one major, maybe 2-week crossover where everybody goes after this one bad guy. It's something they can kind of consider, probably not this year because we still got to get Supergirl over, but they are sounding like they are doing a 4-part crossover series. So, my prayers are up for that one. I need a supersized one where we can do 2 weeks of Crisis. That would be awesome. We have the Shadow Rays flying around and we got Supergirl, awesome. So, just throwing it out there just for you, CW. Arrow finally seems to be back on target because they've dropped the bane of most fans' existence, which was Olicity. Thank God that's gone. Yes. So that's gone. And now we can just focus on Green Arrow being this cool vigilante who's not afraid to every so often crack a few necks and put some arrows through dudes. Right. And now he's got this new team. Team Arrow's gone. We've got Arrow and the Outsiders going on right now, and he's got to get them up to shape before they get killed on his watch. And so I like this new dynamic. I like the refocused attitudes of the characters, and Felicity is the cool assistant / moral conscious, not necessarily just the love interest, who is super powerful and can magically do everything, including redirect a nuclear missile. So, what's your thoughts on Arrow so far? Arrow has improved from last season. Last season was very slow and just no bueno. Odd for me. And I was mainly just watching it to see if it will get better, and it just did not for me. Even the anticlimactic at the end, the climax at the end was very anticlimactic for me. Mm-hmm. So, this season you got Wild Dog, you got Mr. Terrific finally with the T on his face. I'm like, there it is, that's what I'm looking for. I just need him to have his wonderful T-Spears, thank you. And I'm complete with this movie. I'm a little disappointed that Flashpoint didn't fix a few other things. Sure, they gave Diggle a grown son instead, and the whole breaking him out of jail is fine. But and they mentioned the son again, that's cool. But I was hoping to see Black Canary help him break out of jail. Also, I was hoping they'd bring her back with the Flashpoint paradox situation. But maybe I have to wait for that for the Crisis situation. I don't know. Keep waiting. I'm hoping. All right, so you mentioned Flashpoint. Let's talk about Flash. Yes. Season 3 has gotten underway. This is where Arrow started to show some signs of weakening because it was this season where Arrow started to have some problems. So far, Flash has kind of kept everything together for the most part. He's been running around. The only problem so far this season I've had is that it looks like once again we're going to have another speedster situation where we have one too many speedsters running around. I'm glad we have Alchemy is kind of positioned as the main bad guy, so it's not just another guy that he's running after and chasing, so we don't have that end scene of run, Barry, run. Right. We can actually have him doing something. This show really needs to refocus more on the rogues, though, and make them a real threat as opposed to disposable throwaway villains.
True. But I think they're going to do the disposable villains because that's what's worked. That's the formula that's worked so far. However, now we got Jesse Quick. I'm actually hope they're really trying to like bait you with this with the Wally West Kid Flash thing. Like he wants his powers. He really wants his powers. He had his powers before. Alchemy's giving people powers. I feel like that meeting is going to happen somehow.
I too would like powers.
Yes, exactly. And I can't wait to actually see Kid Flash and Flash work together finally and do this thing. Jesse Quick was a good thing cameo and trying to figure out if she's going to stay, if she's going to go. Earlier in the season, you see Wesley Shipp, what's his name?
Jay Garrick.
Mr. Jay Garrick, who, it was just, I'm geeking out because that was a Flash from the 90s series, and there he is again being a Flash, so I love it. And then it still comes, again, kind of goes with your Crisis of Infinity Earths, if you remember that series, where you got Jay Garrick, you got Wally West, you got Barry Allen as well. So it's like everybody's there. And so I'm kind of excited to see where this is going. I don't mind the speedsters running around, a bunch of them running around because that's Flash. I mean, that was the comic series of old, and I'm okay with that. Show me Impulse. I'm cool with that too. So I'm a little annoyed that we have our Earbord Thawne just kind of sitting there. Just in jail for a while, and then he helped him out as a hero. But we see that he's not a hero in another series of ours that we'll probably talk about soon.
Yes. So Legends of Tomorrow is the one show that had some rocky roads ahead during its debut season. It was a shortened season. It wasn't a full run, but it was kind of inconsistent as it went on, but it really ended on a stronger note. So I was really excited and looking forward to its second season. Most of those hopes have been dashed, diminished, trampled, and stomped on with 3 episodes so far. They've kind of abandoned the whole let's try to keep it sort of serious and just go for more comedy. That's not necessarily a show that works for me with the comedy because they've already portrayed the characters as a bunch of misfits, and this crew really looks like a bunch of goofs. Adam is basically Iron Man, but his suit doesn't work 20% of the time. And it's just kind of goofy. And they had the Justice Society make a cameo, and that was cool. And that's another reason I kind of think they could eventually go with this Crisis thing. Right. But Legends is a show that I'm hoping gets back on track and kind of finds its footing sooner rather than later, because I may not be here through the end of this season at this rate.
And you concluded the last season. I decided to just stop watching after the 1950s thing with the vampire, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But then everybody says, keep watching, okay, so I finally caught up. And I'm actually excited about this season because it feels like they are trying to fix it. They are actually finding the good mix of characters to be on the ship. They found their leader, and they're actually struggling. They actually did a little meta thing where they're struggling to figure out the leader, which is what the main problem is last season was. So, but now I think the villains are going to take charge here and make this show great.
Yes.
You got Earbord Thawne running around, changing things in time, and they don't even know that's him. And they're going to have to enlist the Flash at some point, given your Crisis and crossovers. So I'm actually excited about the possibilities. I thought they pulled off the JSA thing pretty well, but then when they had to go save them and they were goofy, it was just like,
it's like, oh no, what are you doing?
I see what you're trying to do, but it didn't quite fit. It felt like the vampire episode again. So I was like, well, I'm good. So, but then they ended it on a good note with the whole, when they went back to, medieval China. I'm like, okay, cool. But then they previewed zombies. And now I'm kind of like, I'm good.
Legends, what are you doing?
So I'm a little worried about how this season's gonna go again because the series it just can't find the right formula here that Flash just found automatically, that Arrow had at first in the first 2 seasons, and kind of working itself back in there. Supergirl just, did a normal episode flow, or, each episode just got better and better, and here we are on the CW with good episodes. So I'm just hoping Legends somehow finds their formula before CW says, you know what, we're not doing this anymore.
Cool. And speaking of formulas, that's the equation for this episode. We're wrapped up here. Thank you for tuning in to Lyles Movie Files. You can catch us every day on lylesmoviefiles.com, where we write a little bit of everything. If you tuned in this past week, you would have been able to get chances to get passes to see Doctor Strange next week. So I've got a new one coming up for Mel Gibson's movie, so feel free to check it out. Follow me on Twitter at lylesmoviefiles. Any place you'd like to direct people to, Melvin?
Sure. Come to my website, Polis Technologies. We do websites, web development, and mobile app development.
Outstanding. So thank you for tuning in. This episode of Lyles Movie Files has been filed. Thanks.